Our poll hunter grabbed a map, jumped behind the wheel, and took a road trip to see how some U.S. and Canadian cities are handling the economic slowdown. Tonight on the next stop in our special series, polls in the heart of the U.S. Rust Belt, where Cleveland is performing surgery on its housing problem. It's a radical solution for a devastated city that's focusing on the road ahead.
You could call it the Cleveland Crunch. And in Cleveland, the crunching seems to be everywhere. Homes that nobody wants, abandoned and condemned, populate a city in ruin. Cleveland's answer to the U.S. housing crisis?
It's really a root canal in neighborhoods. You have to take that garbage off the market so that you can stabilize the real estate values.
Tear it down. Flatten the place, flatten all of them. If these seem like scenes out of a disaster zone, well, this is a disaster. And like in any other disaster, you improvise, you do what you can to make things right again. To understand Cleveland's solution, consider first the problem. Once a thriving, bustling city on Lake Erie's South Shore, Cleveland's economic decline is nothing new, but it fell off a cliff 4 years ago.
So in 2007, we had the highest foreclosure rate in the entire United States.
This is the worst hit area.
This area was hit really hard.
City councilor and lifelong Clevelander Tony Brancatelli gave us a tour of this house in his neighborhood.
This was probably built in the late 1800s.
One of the ever-growing list of homes here foreclosed and emptied in the still deepening housing crisis. Awaiting potential demolition across the city? Thousands of them.
In the city of Cleveland itself, we're talking about 10,000 structures. In this particular neighborhood, we have 1,000 boarded and abandoned structures as we stand today.
Many of the houses like this one have become so devalued they're for sale on eBay. And when one home sits empty and rots, it in turn devalues every other place on the street.
If you don't fix this problem that we're standing in today, this problem will continue to grow like no other contagious disease you've ever seen. And it will continue to hit our market, and we will continue to lose equity at a rate that was beyond what the Depression hit.
This is a very telling map because it shows pretty much what the foreclosure crisis has done. These red dots each represents a foreclosure. All hell broke loose during the foreclosure crisis.
Gus Frangos runs Cleveland's Cuyahoga Land Bank. His job is to, in effect, stop the bleeding by acquiring and, in many cases, demolishing.
It's one property at a time, but it's also doing it strategically, because if you can strategically demolish, certain areas, you can get away with not demolishing others because values will come up. If a value
Says Frangos, that is the key. Save neighborhoods by getting rid of the rot. Imagine living near this place, or this one, or this, or this, or any of these ramshackle, decrepit places littering Cleveland and scarring the streets. Your place suffers just by being near it. The thinking? Empty lots trump eyesores. So now you see a lot of empty lots in Cleveland. Here, planting wooden stakes to keep the lot clear of riffraff.
Are you struggling to make your mortgage payment?
And in getting rid of the rot, Cleveland has made a breakthrough. It has convinced some financial institutions, who hold title to many of those abandoned homes, to not only donate them to the city, but to pay for their demolition. Why? By rescuing the neighborhood filled with other homes and mortgages, everyone wins.
Did you ever think you'd convince financial institutions to pay you money to take these properties off their hands?
2 years ago, we would have never had this conversation.
And it's not a moment too soon. In this otherwise lovely Cleveland suburb, the rot has arrived. And on this morning, workers have come to get rid of it. A long since abandoned house, its owner walked away from it, unable to pay the mortgage. Inside, evidence this was once a happy home, now condemned and about to be flattened. There's a kind of brutality to it, a loud, dirty, violent ending for a place that still holds memories of better times. Those who watched it fall told us they remembered growing up with those who lived here years ago. No matter what it became, this house once meant something.
It's kind of sad. The memories of the family that used to be there. We, briefly knew the family, and just you can see like parts of the house, like the toys and stuff coming through. It's just sad.
As Mary Ann and John Holliday watch, knowing he just lost his job, they know the demolition is a noisy necessity.
It'll be nice once it's all gone, and put a park or do something to it, somewhere the kids can play.
With their house value down more than 40% in 8 years, the last thing they need is a boarded up place across the street. So good riddance, they say. Gus Frangos came out as well to watch this one go down.
This is one of those it's counterintuitive. You take away the bad in order to stabilize the good on a street like this.
Incredibly, just 1 day later, that house, all of it, is gone. Not convinced there's a need for all this? Consider the property values even here in Maple Heights, where some houses are already worth less than the price of a new car.
Come on, Case, let's go.
Dale Gibbons has lived here for 37 years and knows it well.
This house here has been for sale for about 2.5 years. Finally took the for sale sign down, and the original price was in the $70,000 range, and now it's down to $28,000, and nobody looks. All right, this house here has been vacant for about 1.5 years, and originally they started to sell it for $79,000, and nobody came to look at it, and dropped the price to $65,000, to where it's now down to $59,000, and not one person in the 1.5 years came to look at the house.
So they do what they can to stop it from getting worse. And as evening falls, it's clear word has spread this problem must be contained now. At a well-to-do suburban library, nearby mayors have gathered to hear about Cleveland's way forward, knowing they could be next.
So it's not just about our region, it's really about our nation and metropolitan areas just like us.
A key speaker here, Jim Rokakis.
No state has been more devastated by the cumulative impact of at least 11 years.
Who helped Cleveland start down its path of reclaiming and demolishing eyesores, and now spreads that gospel to others. Across the U.S., there are 1.5 million properties foreclosed or about to be.
Well, we can't give up. Easy to. You'd like to just pack everything up and move, but there are a lot of innocent victims in that city still, cities like Cleveland, people who live next door to these foreclosed properties who, because they can't sell their house, have no exit strategy. So we owe it to them to keep fighting.
If we don't do nothing, 25 years from now we'll be right back here and it'll still be bad.
And so they try.
I mean, there are areas though that are seriously like Hanoi during the bombing.
But it's not a quick fix. They're talking at least a decade to turn things around, even at this pace. What stood here a couple of days ago?
Probably a 2.5-story brick building.
And it's gone.
Yes.
And it's not a guaranteed fix either, but it's a start. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Cleveland.